Chapter 311. The 1,000-mile lake, in front of Obedient Island, was a small world of ice. A few huge ice floes were already connected together by the ice on the surface of the lake. The snow-white lake, the sparkling and translucent ice floes, under the illumination of the sun, the small world was completely different from the surrounding environment. Yu Qianqiu stood on the surface of the frozen lake, standing in the middle of a few huge ice floes. 100 balls of green flame floated around him, and under the illumination of the green flame, the surrounding ice floes also reflected an enchanting green radiance. Damn it! Directly using fire to attack is too slow, and the larger the size, the greater the resistance. Looks like I have to compress the green flame into the shape of a flying sword. Yu Qianqiu frowned as he muttered to himself. His hands quickly formed a series of hand seals, and the 100 balls of green flame slowly lengthened. After many experiments, he finally managed to compress the green flame into the shape of a flying sword. He pointed at one of the ice floes, and a green flying sword shot out, silently piercing through the ice floes. Recalling the flying sword, Yu Qianqiu frowned again. Although the problem of speed was solved, the ice floes were not pierced by the flying sword itself. Instead, it was because the flying sword was compressed by the green flame, and the high temperature melted a hole in the ice floes. This was not the result he wanted. Since he was going to make the green flame into a flying sword, he had to make it look like a real flying sword. Otherwise, it would be inconvenient for him to launch a sneak attack. Just think about it. If someone discovered that there was something strange about the sword, they would definitely be on guard. With a series of hand seals, the 99 flying swords shot towards him, and instantly disappeared into his body. Only one flying sword floated in front of him, and he needed to concentrate on studying it. He was currently making adjustments to the fire, and his hand seals were moving like shadows. After a long time, he suddenly pointed 2 fingers at one of the ice floes, and lightly shouted, "Go!" A cold azure light flashed, and a crisp, ding sound rang out. Half of the azure flying sword's body was inserted into the floating ice, and the other half with the hilt was trembling non-stop. Success! Yu Qianqiu looked at the flying sword with a smug smile. Then, he spun around on the ice like a spinning top. Swish swish. In the blink of an eye, his body emitted countless green lights. When he stopped, there were already 99 green flying swords revolving around him. Yu Qianqiu raised his hand and hooked 2 of his fingers. Then, he pulled out the flying sword that was stuck in the floating ice with a shwa sound. A green light flashed, and the 100th flying sword appeared beside him. Go! Yu Qianqiu shouted and waved both his arms. Green light shot out in all directions, and the huge floating ice on the surface of the ice immediately became the target of the flying swords. For a time, the green light flashed, and ding ding dang dang sounds rang out incessantly. Not long after, the surface of the ice was covered with chunks of broken ice. Burn! Yu Qianqiu closed his eyes, opened his arms, and muttered to himself. Boom! The 100 scattered flying swords instantly exploded into raging flames. The green and demonic raging flames instantly turned the cool world into a place that could burn everything. Not even a piece of ice could be found in the surroundings. The water that appeared instantly melted into the lake, and created quite a bit of waves. Yu Qianqiu calmly stood on the surface of the water, and didn't sink, moving up and down with the waves. When he put his hands behind his back, the green flames surged into his body, and the 1,000-mile lake returned to its original appearance. There were no floating ice, no raging flames, and everything was as it was before. Bai Changchun, who was sitting cross-legged in the house in the center of the island, smiled, and slightly nodded his head. He opened his mouth and transmitted his voice, "Come here." This transmission was naturally sent to Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu, who was secretly enjoying the aftertaste of the lake, opened his eyes in a daze. The long sword on his back was unsheathed, and a cold light shot into the water, carrying him to the center of the island. Putting away the sword, he quickly walked into the main hall, bowed, and said, "Master, you were looking for me." Bai Changchun opened his eyes, and expressionlessly said, "Yu Qianzhou, are you willing to sincerely worship me as your master?" "What is this? Didn't I already worship you as my master long ago?" Yu Qianzhou's face was full of doubt. Disciple is naturally sincere. "I will give you one more chance to choose. Think carefully. Once you truly become my disciple, there will be a heavy burden on you, and it will be difficult for you to escape for the rest of your life. Think carefully now, think carefully. Don't worry, if you are not willing, I will not make things difficult for you. I will naturally let you out of the demon region, and from then on, there will be no more relationship between us." Bai Changchun said indifferently. "Fuck. So I wasn't your real disciple before." Yu Qianzhou's expression was a little strange, and he asked, "Master, disciple has something to ask you." "Speak." Bai Changchun replied. "Dare I ask, Master, was the previous Cranely your real disciple?" Yu Qianzhou hesitated for a while, but still opened his mouth. This question was very important to him. If the Cranely had the same status as him, then it would not be a big deal. However, if the Cranely was Bai Changchun's real disciple, as a master, it would be very difficult for him to accept the fact that his disciple was killed, even if the disciple had made a huge mistake. He never thought of himself as a good person, but he always had his own bottom line, and he had his own judgment of right and wrong. There were some things that he could pretend to be courteous, but he could not accept. The Cranely was originally a white crane that the previous punishment envoy raised on Obedient Island when I took over the demon region. After he cultivated to become a spirit, he became my mount, and after taking human form, he became my disciple. He was not a real disciple in the sense of a master and disciple. He's the same as you right now. He's just a nominal disciple of mine. I've never taught him anything, so we're not truly master and disciple in the truest sense of the word. Do you have any more questions? Bai Changchun's tone was very calm. Hearing this, Yu Qianzhou heaved a sigh of relief, but he still asked in doubt, "I have not been in contact with you for a long time, but the Cranely has been with you for so many years, why did you not take him as your disciple?" "There is no why, no why." Bai Changchun looked at him and said slowly, "The reason is very simple, he is too distant, and cares too much about the difference between humans and demons, so he became disloyal. I knew this a long time ago, and it was not because you exposed me. However, he has been with me for many years, and I have always given him opportunities. Otherwise, I would have killed him long ago, and you would not have had the chance to do it. So that was why." Yu Qianzhou nodded, and continued to ask, "You just said that after becoming your true disciple, I will have a heavy responsibility, and it will be difficult for me to get rid of it for the rest of my life. Can I know what this heavy responsibility is?" "No, this is something my disciple should know. You do not have the right to know, and you do not need to know." Bai Changchun refused without hesitation, and asked, "Have you thought it through? I will ask you one last time, are you willing to take me as your master?" F***ck. Such an important question. If you don't tell me, what if you send me to my death? Yu Qianzhou thought about it, and still felt that following him had more advantages than disadvantages, so he bowed deeply, and said, "This disciple is willing." Bai Changchun nodded with satisfaction, and stretched out his hand to point in front of him, and said, "Kneel, perform the ceremony of taking me as your master." At this time, Yu Qianzhou's mentality was a little desperate, and he took a few steps forward, kneeled down, and cupped his fists, and said, "This disciple greets master." After saying that, he kowtowed 3 times. "All right, sit down. Didn't you want to know what kind of heavy responsibility you will have to shoulder? Sit down, master will slowly tell you." Bai Changchun pointed at the place where Yu Qianzhou was kneeling. Chapter 312. Yu Qianqiu sat cross-legged and Bai Changchun asked, "What do you think of my cultivation?" The former smiled and said, "I can't say, but it's very high. It's the highest I've ever seen." The latter wasn't modest and nodded. After my cultivation level reached the late deity transformation stage, people at this level called me the #1 expert in the world. There were also people who called me the #1 expert in the cultivation world. Although such a title is somewhat suspicious, I believe that I still have no match in the deity transformation stage. I'm telling you this not to boast, but to let you know that it won't be a disgrace to you to have me as your master. Hearing this, Yu Qianqiu suddenly felt a little dizzy. The world's #1 expert and the cultivation world's #1, these titles were really awesome. Awesome people really deserved awesome titles. He knew that Bai Changchun's cultivation was high, but he hadn't seen other soul formation experts, so he couldn't compare. He didn't expect his master to be the world's #1 expert. He remembered that his first master, Hao Sansi, was only at the nascent soul stage, his second master was at the tribulation passing stage, and his third master was at the soul formation stage. His masters came one after another, and their cultivation levels were higher than the one before. Unfortunately, none of them taught him anything. He didn't know if he would have a fourth master, but this master was already the world's #1 expert. According to the speed of his progress, would he have to become an immortal's master in the future? Wouldn't it be a bit too shameless to always have a master like this? Who cares? Hirogwa has more masters in the Condor Shooting League. He has more than 70 masters, and I only have 3. It's not much. Didn't sage Confucius say that among 3 people, there must be a master? Damn it. I respect the ancient teachings more than the ancient teachings. Among 3 people, all of them are my masters. That's humble enough, right? With a reason to comfort himself, Yu Qianqiu smiled and said, "Master, it's my honor to have you as my master. How can it be a disgrace to me?" Bai Changchun nodded and didn't dwell on this topic. He asked, "Do you know the origin of this demon domain?" Yu Qianqiu shook his head and said, "I don't know, I'd like to hear the details." "Have you heard of the war in the ancient times?" Bai Changchun smiled and asked, "Then do you know why there was such a war?" Yu Qianqiu shook his head again. "It has been more than 100,000 years since the war. At that time, there was no demon domain. At that time, humans, demons, and ghosts coexisted and went their own ways. Until one day, for some unknown reason, the immortals from the upper realm came alone or in groups of 3 to 5. There were even many who came riding on divine beasts from the upper realm. One after another, they descended into the human world and started fighting, causing chaos in the human world. Demons and ghosts ran amok, and the people had no way to live. Under the temptation of the previous immortals, the cultivators in the human world also joined in, Bai Changchun said with a sigh. Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows, and his expression was a little strange. Judging from the old man's expression, he didn't seem to be bemoaning the state of the universe and pitying mankind, nor was he worried about the misfortune of the common people. Why did it feel like he was born at the wrong time? Could it be that the old man had been a loner seeker for defeat for too long, and wanted nothing more than to be born in troubled times? At that time, the masters of the cultivation world didn't know why the immortals of the upper realm were fighting each other. They only knew that they were fighting for something. Even the immortals of the upper realm were willing to risk their lives to fight for it. Naturally, it attracted more and more masters of the cultivation world to participate in it. As a result, the cultivation world was in a mess. Until one day, another person came down from the upper realm. This person rode on the #1 divine beast of the celestial realm. As long as there was a big fight in the mortal world, he would appear and join in the fun. The celestials who came down from the lower realm would run away as soon as they saw him. They were extremely afraid of him, and those celestials called him the Myriad Swords Demon Monarch. The Myriad Swords Demon Monarch. Yu Qianqiu suddenly frowned and muttered, "Master, I think I heard Wu Huagan, the son of the Wu clan's current master, mention this person before. He said that he could control tens of thousands of flying swords to fight against the enemy. I didn't expect that he was also an immortal of the upper realm." Yes, this person could indeed control tens of thousands of flying swords to fight against the enemy. At that time, none of the immortals were a match for him. They could only run away when they encountered him. Bai Changchun said with admiration, because the immortals only knew how to run away, he felt very bored, so he set up a heaven and earth formation and trapped all the immortals in it. He wandered around the mortal world, and whenever he felt bored, he would run into the heaven and earth formation and find someone to fight with. One time, the immortals who were trapped in the formation finally stopped hiding. They used a trick and joined forces to attack him. Finally, he was seriously injured. When he returned to the outside world to recuperate, he saw that the mortal world was not peaceful, so he became kind. When he had free time, he drove most of the demons and ghosts in the world together, which became the demons and ghosts domain of today. Yu Qianqiu was dumbfounded. Chapter 313. Just as he was considering whether to tell his master about the dragon with the aura of a bastard, Bai Changchun said, "Yu Qianqiu, if I pass on the position of torture master to you one day, will you accept it?" Yu Qianqiu was stunned and immediately forgot about the dragon. He thought to himself, "I'll find a chance to figure it out first." He rubbed his hands with a smile and said modestly, "Master, you must be joking. With my current cultivation, how can I take over the demon ghost region?" "Yes. With the mysterious skill you practice, it shouldn't be a problem if you have the cultivation of the tribulation passing stage. Unfortunately, I don't have that much time to wait. It seems that I'll have to ask Nongzhu to help you for a while." Bai Changchun sighed. "Rest in peace, He Li. Your unfinished business will be completed by me." Yu Qianqiu prayed silently in his heart and asked, "Master, who is Mr. Nongzhu? Why do you think so highly of him?" Bai Changchun smiled and said, "He is a cultivator at the middle stage of deification. He lives in the purple bamboo forest in the South Sea and occasionally goes to the secular world to play. The previous torturer of the demon region had originally chosen him to take over, and he reluctantly agreed. However, because he was carefree and lazy by nature, and because I appeared at the right time, he tricked me into coming to the demon region. Due to fate, I became the torturer of the demon region. Purple bamboo forest in the South Sea. Mr. Nongzhu is Guanyin Bodhisattva?" Yu Qianqiu was confused and asked, "Master, is Mr. Nongzhu a man or a woman?" "Of course he's a man, but he has a female disciple. If there's a chance, I'll ask you to go to the South Sea to visit him. After all, you still need his support after I leave." Bai Changchun was stunned and asked, "Why do you ask?" "Oh, nothing, just asking." Yu Qianqiu scratched his head and said, "Master, do you really have to go to the Holy East Land? I've heard from He Li that it's a very dangerous place. Very few people can come out after going in. Moreover, even if they go there, they might not be able to find a way to ascend to the immortal realm. I've heard Master talk about the ancient times. I'm sure that the immortal realm isn't comfortable either. Why go there to suffer? How can it be as free and unfettered as staying in the human world?" Bai Changchun shook his head and said with a smile, "I didn't go to the Eastern Holy Land to seek the method to ascend to the world of immortals. My life is nearing its end, so what I seek is to break through to the late deity transformation stage and attain immortality. Besides..." As he said this, a strange look suddenly flashed in his eyes. "Since immortals can live forever, I'm sure there are still a large number of immortals trapped in the Eastern Holy Land. Even if I can't obtain immortality, I still want to fight a great battle to my heart's content. It has been my wish for many years to be able to suffer a great defeat in my lifetime. Yu Qianqiu, ever since I reached the final stage of tribulation passing, I have never been defeated. It has been more than 2,000 years. You won't understand how I feel. Understood. How could I not understand? Isn't it just dugachobai? You make it sound so coquettish. You're obviously looking for excitement because your spirit is empty, yet you still have so many excuses. How great would it be if you had the time to enjoy all the beauties in the world? No one would be able to win you over. Looks like I'll have to find that Mr. Nongju and spar with him when I have time. He's one of my people. Yu Qianqiu muttered in his heart. He frowned and said, although Master's cultivation is invincible in the mortal world, to challenge an immortal, this. Master, an immortal's cultivation must be extraordinary. What he meant was to advise his master to think twice before acting. How could an immortal be so easily bullied? Humph. Originally, I also thought that an immortal was very great. Bai Changchun suddenly snorted coldly and stood up. A hint of arrogance appeared on his aged face as he said, 200 years ago, I went to the periphery of the East Holy Land to investigate and coincidentally met an immortal who lived in the mortal world. After knowing his identity, I treated him with great respect and humbly asked him some questions. However, he was arrogant. In a fit of anger, I fought with him. In less than half a day, he died under my sword. Humph. An immortal is nothing more than this. He couldn't satisfy me to my heart's content. Because of this, I became even more determined to enter the East Holy Land. You're awesome. Even an immortal was killed by you. Pretend I didn't say anything earlier. Yu Qianqiu looked at him in shock and was completely speechless. It seemed that this master's confidence was extremely inflated. Yu Qianqiu, now you should understand what kind of heavy responsibility you have to shoulder. Bai Changchun strolled to the door and said as he looked at the distant horizon. Yu Qianqiu stood up and followed him. He smiled bitterly and said, Master wants me to continue guarding the demon ghost region. He didn't know why, but now he was a little dispirited and uninterested in the matter that he originally yearned for. Bai Changchun nodded and said, not only that, but... Forget it, there are some things that you don't need to know for now. When I leave, I will naturally tell you. Now, I need you to do two things. Master, please instruct me. Yu Qianqiu said respectfully. Bai Changchun said without turning his head, first, go to the demon ghost region and find a reliable person to help you plant the deficient flame profound fruit. You can choose anyone in the demon ghost region. You shouldn't spend your time on this. Second, after you finish the first thing, go to the South Sea purple bamboo forest and find Nongju. When you arrive, she will understand what I mean. She will arrange some things for you to do. Take this opportunity, the two of you can get to know each other. This disciple understands. Yu Qianqiu agreed and thought, the first thing is easy. Tomorrow, the Demon King and the Ghost King will gather together. I can choose one at random. Presumably, as long as I say it, there will be a lot of people who want to come. Doing the second thing will give me a chance to go back and have a look. It has been a month. I don't know what the situation outside is now. Just as he was thinking, he suddenly heard Bai Changchun snorting coldly. He looked up and followed his gaze. He didn't know what was happening in the distance. The clouds in the sky were actually circling, and he could faintly see the flashing thunder and lightning. Yu Qianqiu was stunned. Isn't that where Miss Mu is? He couldn't help asking, Master, what's going on there? A ghost cultivator has broken through to the final stage of the Ghost King and is crossing the tribulation. Bai Changchun said, suddenly looked back at him and asked, in the demon domain, the real Demon King and the Ghost King are gathering in that place. Did you do it? Yu Qianqiu nodded awkwardly and said, after the Demon Kings and the Ghost King know that I have become your disciple, they all want to meet me. I can't bear to refuse their kindness, so I designated a meeting place for them and plan to meet them tomorrow. Master, if you think it's inappropriate, I will ask them to leave now. You don't need to ask me for this kind of thing. You have the right to do it yourself. After saying this, Bai Changchun returned to his original position and sat down cross-legged. He closed his eyes and rested calmly. Yu Qianqiu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. The old man had delegated the power to him. As long as he didn't act recklessly, he should be fine. Speaking of which, Yu Ji received the news that Yu Qianqiu was going to gather all the demon kings and the ghost king in the demon domain. She was overjoyed. This time, she must remind Yu Qianqiu of what he had promised her. She was really afraid that he would forget it, so she rushed over a day earlier. As soon as she arrived at Miss Mu's stronghold, she found that there were people who had arrived earlier than her. Some even arrived nearly 10 days earlier. Those who came were guests. As the owner of this place, and in addition to the fact that it was Yu Qianqiu who had ordered her to come, Miss Mu naturally warmly welcomed the Ghost King and the Demon King. As soon as Yu Ji sat down in the stronghold, her expression suddenly changed. She secretly cursed, "This is bad." Her cultivation level was originally at the mid-stage of the Ghost King, but she had broken through to the late stage of the Ghost King some time ago. Based on her calculations, she would be undergoing the heavenly tribulation within a year. Who knew that the heavenly tribulation would suddenly come today? The Demon Kings and the Ghost King were all experienced people, so they naturally understood what was going on. Miss Mu quickly led Yu Ji to an open space far away from the stronghold. Although she was afraid that the stronghold would be affected, she was also helping Yu Ji. This was all she could do to help Yu Ji. If anyone interfered, Yu Ji would have to endure an even more powerful heavenly tribulation. At this moment, a group of demon kings and ghost kings were standing in the distance watching. The dark clouds in the sky were as black as ink, and ferocious bolts of lightning flashed across them. As more and more lightning bolts appeared, the wind howled, and with a loud boom, a strong light finally converged and fiercely struck down. Yu Ji, who was on the ground, was like a duckweed in the wind, struggling to resist the lightning bolts that were constantly striking down. Chapter 3:14. 300 demon kings and 300 ghost king had gathered in the mountain stronghold. It was bustling with activity. Large bowls of wine and large pieces of meat were served. Everyone was like an overlord. The men sat around the table with wine cups in their hands, looking very heroic. The women chatted and laughed in groups of 2 or 3. Men and women had different ways of making friends. Bai Changchun had never gathered all the demons and ghosts together. Not all the demon kings and ghost king knew each other. Most of them had only heard of each other but never seen each other. It could be said that this was the first time such a scene had happened in the history of the demon region. The one who had done this was naturally Yu Qianqiu. At this moment, the demon kings and ghost king had lost their usual dignity and reservation in front of their subordinates. Everyone had the same status, so there was nothing to be pretentious about. Yu Qianqiu was the most discussed person among the crowd. Lady Mu had mobilized a large number of subordinates to serve the demon kings and ghost king. She herself was busy, but she was busy and happy at the same time. Many people were looking at her with envy. They were envious that she had gained Yu Qianqiu's trust. They thought to themselves, the pavilion closest to the water enjoys moonlight first. Everyone thought that gaining Yu Qianqiu's trust might be a life-saving talisman at a critical moment. The busy Lady Mu walked through the mountain stronghold with a smile on her face. She nodded at the crowd from time to time. Big Sister Mu. A slender hand tugged at Miss Mu. It was a slender and voluptuous woman. Her hair was tied up in a bun, her eyebrows were like willow leaves, her eyes were bright, and her face was exquisite. Her body was wrapped in a seductive black veil that exuded a feminine charm. She was definitely the best of the best. Lady Mu stopped and turned around. She smiled and said, "Sister Yu, what's the matter?" As she spoke, the surrounding women moved closer with Lady Mu in the center. The gorgeous woman called Sister Yu looked around with her watery eyes. She smiled sweetly and said, "Sister Mu, we are really envious that you have gained Sir's favor. I don't know what Mr. Yu likes. I hope Elder Sister Mu can tell us so that we can be prepared." The group of women nodded in agreement. The group of men also temporarily stopped shouting and pricked up their ears. Lady Mu glanced at the crowd, shook her head, and said with a smile, "Sister Yu, what are you talking about? I've only met Mr. twice. How would I know what he likes?" Ha! The beautiful woman seemed to have heard a funny joke. She laughed until her body trembled. "Sister, don't try to trick me. I've heard that you've already accompanied Mr. while naked twice. Otherwise, why would Mr. be so fond of you and gather us at your stronghold?" So that was how it was. All of a sudden, there was an uproar. They all thought that Lady Mu had done it with Yu Qianqiu, so they looked at Lady Mu with much more respect. But Lady Mu's eyes turned cold. She had stripped naked and accompanied Yu Qianqiu to take a bath twice. This matter was only known by a few people within her circle. Even outsiders knew about it. Someone must have leaked it. Thinking of Yu Qianqiu's decisiveness in killing and the heart-palpitating blue flame, Lady Mu's heart quivered. Who leaked it? This matter must be investigated. Yu Fengjiao. Someone in the crowd shouted. Yu Yan came over and said coldly with a gloomy face, "How dare you say such baseless words? Aren't you afraid that Mr. Yu will be angry if he finds out?" She had seen Yu Qianqiu kill without batting an eye. Oh! I was wondering who it was. It turned out to be Yu Yan. Yu Fengjiao said with a look of sudden realization, "Yes. This place is controlled by two women. I heard that Mr. is a young man. No wonder he likes this place." Alas! The illicit relationship between a human, a demon, and a ghost must have a different feeling. I, Yu Fengjiao, am really envious. As she spoke, her hands swayed seductively, intentionally or unintentionally passing over her ample breasts and perky buttocks. She twisted her snake-like soft waist and glanced provocatively at Lady Mu's and Yoyan's breasts with disdain. She looked as if she was the master of two men. The group of men looked at each other in shock. They all thought that this woman was too bold. She dared to say such words. Was she not afraid of death? Is this the so-called first beauty of our demon domain, Sister Yu Fengjiao? The pale Yu Ji came over and looked Yu Fengjiao up and down. Lady Mu's face was as cold as frost. She wanted to lose her temper, but it was not convenient. After all, she had gathered everyone on behalf of Yu Qianqiu. As soon as she saw Yu Ji, she immediately came over to help her up and said, "Madam, why did you come out? You have just crossed the tribulation and are weak. You should have a good rest." Not only Lady Mu, but also the other Ghost King and Demon King, as well as the arrogant Yu Fengjiao, all respectfully greeted her, "Madam." It should be known that Meng Yan was quite senior in the demon domain. He had been conferred the title of Ghost King by the former torture envoy, and his seniority was even higher than by Changchun's. The most important thing was that Meng Yan had a power that was different from others. He had a group of hundreds of thousands of loyal soldiers who would follow him through life and death. After cultivating in the demon domain for thousands of years, there were definitely many masters among them. There were countless cultivators at the late stage of the Ghost King, more than anywhere else. This was also the reason why after Bai Changchun killed Meng Yan, he wanted to help Yu Ji, who was only at the middle stage of the Ghost King, ascend the throne. If it were someone else, it would be difficult for any cultivator at the late stage of the Ghost King to control the hundreds of thousands of ghost soldiers. When Meng Yan was alive, they listened to either the general or the madam. Now that the general was dead, they naturally listened to the madam. In the demon domain, the torture envoy did not allow outsiders to make trouble here at will, nor did he allow the people inside to go out at will. However, he usually turned a blind eye to the internal disputes in the demon domain. It didn't matter how many people died, and they could fight at will. However, they were allowed to kill each other, but they were not allowed to occupy territory. Even if they won, they had to go back to their respective places. In short, the territory was made of iron, but the people were alive. Anyway, there were many demon kings at the late stage of the tribulation passing in the demon domain. Once they died, they could immediately confer a new one, so it didn't matter if they continued to fight. It could be said that, whether it was a group fight or a one-on-one fight, no one in the entire demon domain was a match for Meng Yan's group. Even though Meng Yan was dead, that terrifying power had a new master, and that was this pale-faced woman. From this, it could be seen how important Yu Ji was. Yu Fengjiao dared to be arrogant in front of Miss Mu, but she had to behave herself in front of Yu Ji. Otherwise, if Yu Ji gave the order, Yu Fengjiao would definitely have no way to escape, and the army could sweep her territory clean in a few days. Yu Ji's eyes slowly swept across the crowd. Although she was smiling, she felt a little sad in her heart. Facing the heroes in the demon domain, the man who had protected her for thousands of years was really gone. She had to bear all the things alone. She was a little tired and really wanted to leave this sad place as soon as possible. As long as she was still in the demon domain, she would always be marked by Ghost General Meng Yan, which could be seen from the way everyone called her Madam. She restrained her emotions and said to Miss Mu with a smile, "I don't know when Mr. Yu will arrive. If he comes and I can't welcome him in time, wouldn't it be a sin? I don't have the mood to rest. Madam can rest in peace. I have sent people to guard the 1,000-mile lake. Once Sir arrives, someone will immediately report to you," Miss Mu said as she supported her. Yu Ji shook her head and looked at Yu Fengjiao. She smiled meaningfully and said, "Sister Yu is indeed worthy of being called the #1 beauty in the demon region. Now that I've seen you today, you do live up to your reputation." Yu Fengjiao hurriedly bowed, "I dare not. Madam's beauty is really peerless. I have admired you for a long time." She glanced at Miss Mu and Yu Yan, and sneered, "But I am confident that my beauty is better than some people. If it weren't for the fact that this place is close to the 1,000-mile lake and some people have taken the initiative, Sir would not have chosen this place to gather everyone. It just so happens that some people are so arrogant. Madam, don't you think it's annoying?" Yu Ji was a smart woman and immediately understood the meaning of Yu Fengjiao's words. She smiled and did not say anything. The other men shook their heads. It was true that 3 women were like a drama. This woman was crazy. She did not know where and when to be jealous. Yu Yan, who was on the side, shouted on the spot, "Yu Fengjiao, what do you mean by that?" Yu Fengjiao raised her eyebrows. Just as she was about to mock him, a silhouette flashed by and bowed to Lady Mu. "Lady Mu, Mr. Yu has left the 1,000-miles lake and is flying towards us." Hearing this, the atmosphere immediately became solemn. The women stopped making a fuss, and everyone stopped watching. They immediately rushed out of the entrance of the stronghold and lined up to welcome him. Chapter 3:15. Ha! How lively! From afar, Yu Qianqiu saw a large group of people at the entrance of the stronghold. As soon as his sword landed, a group of people knelt on the ground and said in unison, "Greetings, Mr. He, no need to be so courteous. Get up." Yu Qianqiu laughed and raised his hand. Looking around, there were people wearing all kinds of clothes and colors. Especially their hair, it was a complete mess. No wonder they were demons and ghosts. The demons and ghosts were also secretly sizing him up. Seeing his smiling face, they all felt that he should not be difficult to get along with. Lady Mu, who had stood up, walked over and raised her hand to welcome him. "Mister, please come in." Yu Qianzhou smiled and nodded at the crowd, then walked in. If it was in the past, he might have been a little timid to see so many people who were similar to the final stage of the God's tribulation. But now, his mentality was very different. Especially after listening to Bai Changchun's amazing speech these 2 days, and seeing this group of demon kings and ghost king, he really felt that they were nothing. The eyes of the demons and ghosts revolved around him and moved with him. Yu Fingjiao, who was among them, had a fiery look in her eyes. She wanted to go over and talk to them, but due to her identity, she was more or less afraid and did not dare to act rashly. Seeing Lady Mu and Yu Qianzhou smiling at each other, an unconcealable jealousy appeared in her eyes, and she gnashed her teeth in anger. When Yu Ji saw that Yu Qianzhou's gaze swept past her without even stopping for a moment, her face immediately became even paler. She felt miserable in her heart. Yu Qianzhou's current status was unreachable. How could he still be that young man who was on the verge of death back then? As expected, he had forgotten about her. When she thought of her dead husband, she felt that it was not worth it. She did not know that Yu Qianzhou's eyes were a little dazzled by these heroes of different colors. He was not in the mood to distinguish who was who. Otherwise, the 9th nether cave under her Ghost King's hall would be enough to attract him. Madame Mu, who was leading the way, suddenly realized that Yu Qianzhou had stopped after a few steps. She couldn't help but ask, "Mister, is there something wrong?" The group of demon ghosts following him also stopped. Yu Qianzhou shook his head, then looked around and said, "I heard from Master yesterday that there's a ghost cultivator here who has broken through to the Ghost King final phase and is undergoing his tribulation." "Who is it?" The demonic ghosts naturally knew who the master he was referring to was. They immediately felt deep veneration, and their demeanor became much more respectful. It seemed like they were all afraid of Bai Changchun. Yu Qianzhou smiled and waved his hand, "Don't mind me, I was just asking." As he said that, he paused. Yu Ji walked out from the crowd and bowed, "Mister, it was I who was undergoing my tribulation yesterday." F***ck. This woman's cultivation was already at the Ghost King final phase. Yu Qianzhou raised his eyebrows and suddenly said in a surprised tone, "Sister-in-law, why are you here? How could I trouble sister-in-law to come and welcome me? Dispense with the formalities, dispense with the formalities." As he said that, he reached out to support Yu Ji. As their skin touched, he thought to himself, "How smooth." The demonic ghosts looked at each other in confusion. They did not know when Yu Ji had become acquainted with Yu Qianzhou. Meanwhile, Yu Ji's body trembled. This sister-in-law was worth a lot. She bit her lips and said softly, "I don't dare. Sister-in-law, please accept my condolences. This is all my fault. If it wasn't for my insistence, Brother Meng would not have." Sigh. Yu Qianzhou shook his head in regret. He held Yu Ji's arm tightly and patted it from time to time as if he was caressing it. His tone suddenly turned serious, "Sister-in-law, don't worry. Although Brother Meng is no longer here, I'm still here. Sister-in-law, please take care." His words carried extra weight in the demonic ghost's ears. Yu Qianzhou's words clearly meant that he was protecting Yu Ji. Hence, they looked at Yu Ji with envy. Some of them suddenly realized that before Meng Yan died, he went to the 1,000-mile lake and saw Yu Qianzhou on a flying instrument. However, Yu Ji herself felt that there was something fishy. Yu Qianzhou's patting and caressing action immediately made her feel that there was a deeper meaning in his words. Her imagination ran wild. "Brother Meng is no longer here, but I'm still here." Yu Qianzhou looked at Yu Ji's evasive eyes with pity. He thought to himself, "I don't mean anything else. Don't think too much." He looked around and asked, "Madame Meng's body is a little weak. Who can give her a hand?" His question was a little redundant. No matter how weak Yu Ji was, she could still kill a tiger, let alone walk. He was just putting on an act and finding an excuse to let go. However, someone was willing to be attentive and volunteered to help. Yu Fingjiao was afraid that someone would snatch her away. She teleported over and bowed with a flirtatious look. Yu Fingjiao greets Mr. I'll help madam. As she said that, she took the initiative and threw a few flirtatious glances at a certain someone. Yu Ji's heart was pounding when she called him Mr. and Madam. Her imagination ran wild again. This person was too smart. She could always understand things that others couldn't. There was no other way. Yu Qianqiu was quite sensitive to flirting with beautiful women. He accepted all of them without missing a beat. His eyes lit up. He looked around and laughed. I didn't expect there to be so many beautiful women in our demon region. All the demons and ghosts immediately laughed along. Yu Qianqiu suddenly felt refreshed. No wonder people said that a man couldn't be powerless for a day. Even the demons and ghosts knew how to flatter him. This feeling was not bad. He was also interested. He turned around and said, Yu Fingjiao. Is it that beauty of the world, Yu? Yes. Yu Fingjiao answered in a sweet voice. Her flirtatious eyes were like water, almost dripping out. Ha! Not bad. You are indeed a beauty. Yu Qianqiu laughed. Yu Fingjiao put on a shy expression and replied in a shameless tone, Thank you for your compliment, mister. This little slut is quite interesting. Yu Qianqiu couldn't help but take a few more glances at her curvaceous body. Then, he laughed heartily and waved his hand. He strode into the fort. A group of demon kings and the ghost king followed him. Their imposing manner made a certain someone feel proud of himself. A fancy seat had been set up on the steps outside the hall. Yu Qianqiu sat on the high seat without any reservations. He looked down at the demon kings and the ghost king, who had taken their respective seats. A sense of pride welled up in his chest. Lady Mu, who was standing beside him, smiled and said, Mister, the demon kings and the ghost king, who are in charge of the various territories, have gathered quite a number of spiritual herbs according to your instructions. They have been stored in the storeroom. Oh! Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up. Have you gathered all the spiritual herbs listed on the Jade Archive? Lady Mu smiled bitterly and shook her head. No. Mister, you may not know this, but out of the thousands of spiritual herbs listed on the Jade Archive, we haven't managed to gather a single stalk of the top-grade 9-scented spiritual herb. As for the few dozen top-grade spiritual herbs, they are too rare. We've only managed to gather a few of them. The rest are more or less complete. You're saying how many top-grade spiritual herbs have you gathered? Let's go. Quick, bring me to them. Yu Qianqiu couldn't sit still any longer. He stood up abruptly. It should be known that the top-grade spiritual herbs were about the same level as the 7-star blood orchid. As for the highest quality ones, they were even more difficult to find. They were all about the same grade as the Adumbra flower. These kinds of highest quality items were all things that could only be found by chance, not sought. He had originally intended to give it a try and let everyone try it out. However, he was already very surprised to be able to gather some top-grade spiritual herbs. Chapter 316. On the steps of the hall, Yu Qianqiu and Lady Mu walked away together. The demonic ghosts below the stage heard them clearly. When they saw that the spiritual herbs could make Yu Qianqiu lose his composure, their expressions turned solemn. Many of them had already taken out their duplicated jade archives and injected their divine senses into them to check on the spiritual herbs that were ranked at the top. All of them silently made up their minds. The storeroom was in a cave at the back of the mountain. Lady Mu led him to a single room. As soon as Yu Qianqiu walked in, his eyes lit up. On the long stone platform, there were strands of spiritual herbs of all shapes and sizes. Each of them had their own positions. He walked along the stone platform step by step, nodding his head with a smile on his face. He finally saw many spiritual herbs that he had never seen before. He used his divine sense to contact Chu Ping in Utopia and told her to prepare to receive the spiritual herbs. As he walked past and looked at the spiritual herbs on the stone platform, he swept them in. "Mister, these 4 are the top-grade spiritual herbs," Lady Mu said as she pointed to a single short stone platform in the middle. The 4 different spiritual herbs immediately attracted Yu Qianqiu's attention. He rubbed his hands excitedly and took a few steps forward. "Ah! 7-star blood orchid." The expression on Yu Qianqiu's face froze. He picked up the rather old blood-red orchid, examined it carefully, and threw it into his storage pouch. He was all too familiar with the 7-star blood orchid, as he had planted a large number of them in Utopia. "Mister, is this called the 7-star blood orchid? What's its use?" Lady Mu asked curiously. "Nothing much. It's exactly what I need to concoct pills." Yu Qianqiu casually took it with him. When he gave her the jade archive back then, he had only marked out the spiritual plants and the like. As for what they were called or what they were used for, he hadn't copied them at all. He naturally had a plan in mind as to why he did this. Since Lady Mu could become the overlord of a region, she was not stupid. Seeing that he was unwilling to talk about it in detail, she did not ask further. Then, he picked up another stalk of spirit grass with a heavy expression. It was a Ganoderma with 7 different colors. Rainbow Ganoderma. Yu Qianqiu muttered to himself in disappointment. It was recorded in the Jade Archive that if the 7-colored Ganoderma was combined with several other spiritual herbs to refine into a pill and consumed, it would be able to smoothly break through the bottlenecks of any stage of cultivation from the tribulation passing stage to the early stage of the tribulation passing stage. It was a treasure in the cultivation world for cultivation advancement. If a cultivator's cultivation base was stuck at the peak of the nascent soul late stage, a pill refined from the rainbow lingji mushroom would almost certainly help him break through to the tribulation transcendent stage. Although the item was good, it reminded Yu Qianqiu of his sad past. It was precisely because House Sansi had unintentionally picked up this item that the Deluo sect had tried to kill him. Yu Qianqiu's face darkened at the thought of how the Deluo sect had yet to avenge his master's death. "Mister, what's wrong? Is there something wrong?" Lady Mu asked fearfully. This 7-colored Ganoderma had been picked by none other than one of her subordinates. Now that she saw Yu Qianqiu's expression, he was obviously very unhappy. How could she not be afraid? "It's nothing." Yu Qianqiu came back to his senses and took a deep breath. Holding the 7-colored Ganoderma in his hand, he smiled bitterly and said, "When I first entered the cultivation world, I became the disciple of a master. It was because of this item that my master lost his life. Now that I think about it, I feel a little sad." As he spoke, he stuffed the Ganoderma into his storage pouch. Lady Mu immediately heaved a sigh of relief. She could finally put her heart at ease. When she looked at Yu Qianqiu again, she saw that he was staring at the remaining 2 spiritual herbs with his mouth wide open. His eyes were slowly widening, and he had a look of disbelief on his face. He stood rooted to the spot, not moving an inch. The 2 spiritual herbs were about half the height of a person. Their leaves were green like jade and shaped like a baby's palm. The rest of their bodies were as transparent as crystal, and the meridians inside could be seen clearly. They looked like bamboo, but they were actually growing in segments. Every segment was the length of a finger, and there was a crystal ball-like segment. The 2 spiritual herbs looked strange, but they were almost identical. The only difference was that one could clearly see the meridians inside, one red and one purple. "What's wrong now?" Lady Mu looked at him suspiciously. The living beings in the demon realm had almost zero ability to distinguish and use spirit herbs. However, it was also because of this that some rare spirit herbs were preserved. She didn't understand, so naturally, she found it strange. Yu Qianqiu took out the jade archive containing the pill formula. After imbuing it with his divine sense, he put it away and suddenly grabbed the 2 stalks of spirit herbs in each of his hands. He sniffed the one on the right, then the one on the left. He nodded slightly and muttered, "The fragrance doesn't disperse, one strong and one weak. There's no mistaking it, there's no mistaking it. It's actually the seal of truth and falsehood. Damn it, I'm rich." Ha! The true and false sealless break was recorded in the pill recipe jade archive. This item was actually a pair of spirit herbs that grew together with a male and a female. The male herb was known as the false sealless break, while the female herb was known as the true sealless break. Wherever a male herb grew, the female herb would be found, and vice versa. Combined with a few other spirit herbs, it could be refined into a true and false limit-breaking pill. The male herb would produce a false limit-breaking pill, and the female herb would produce a true limit-breaking pill. But when the male and female herbs were combined, there was no distinction between the real and the fake. The spirit pill was called the limit-breaking pill. Since it was called the limit-breaking pill, it naturally had its miraculous effects. Normally, when a cultivator consumed a spirit pill, as long as they had enough spirit stones, the spiritual energy they absorbed within 2 hours of the pill's medicinal effects dissipating could be quickly refined into true origin with the help of the miraculous medicinal effects of the limit-breaking pill. Think about it, if there were enough limit-breaking pills and spirit stones, wouldn't it be possible to increase one's cultivation without any restrictions? Of course, although the limit-breaking pill was miraculous, it wasn't that exaggerated. If it really was that exaggerated, then Yu Qianqiu could turn his subordinates into gods. Although spirit pills were called limit-breaking pills, the great Tao of the heavens and earth still had a strong binding force. First of all, Yu Qianqiu could solve the problem of having a large amount of spirit stones and limit-breaking pills. As for the bottlenecks in cultivation, such as breaking through from the foundational stage to the core formation stage, he could also solve them. Especially now that he had the rainbow Lingji, which could help people break through bottlenecks in cultivation, in his hands. However, once one's cultivation reached the tribulation transcendent stage where one would have to endure the tribulation transcendent stage, this kind of spirit pill would lose its effect. This kind of mysterious thing between heaven and earth was difficult to explain. In other words, it didn't matter if it was the limit-breaking pill, the real limit-breaking pill, or the fake limit-breaking pill, all of them could help people increase their cultivation quickly. However, when one reached the tribulation passing stage, they would be useless. However, since there were 3 types of limit-breaking pills, each of them had their own advantages. The real limit-breaking pill could help people increase their cultivation level. However, after reaching the tribulation passing stage, one could only reach the end of the tribulation passing stage. It would be difficult to progress any further. This was because this type of Dan had side effects. The side effects of taking too many Dan. Just like what Bai Changchun said, when things reach an extreme, they will move in the opposite direction. The limit-breaking pill was, in fact, an insurmountable restriction was set at the end. The fake limit-breaking pill could also help people increase their cultivation level to the tribulation passing stage, but it was at the cost of one's life. Once one reached the tribulation passing stage, whoever took it would die. There was also an insurmountable restriction. Bai Changchun often said that if the heavens had feelings, he was indeed an expert who cultivated the Tao. His words had revealed the secrets of the heavens. There was no difference between the real and the fake limit-breaking pill, but the restrictions of the tribulation passing stage were still there. Although there were no restrictions that made people feel pain, the heavens would not let them be so carefree. As the saying went, there was always a loss. The price of taking a spiritual pill was that one would not be able to move for a month, and their entire body would be stiff. Only after the side effects were gone would their bodies be able to move freely. By the time they could move, it would already be a month later. If it was for the sake of increasing their cultivation level, why wouldn't they be afraid? They could come every month to stiffen their bodies. Yu Qianqiu was often worried about the cultivation levels of his subordinates in Utopia. When he brought them out to fight, they would have to scheme and scheme. Although there were many of them, they could only do some sneaky things. This was too displeasing, but there was nothing they could do. If they met someone powerful, they would not be able to win. Just as he was dozing off, someone sent him a pillow. How could he not be happy? If the troops under him were all experts at the tribulation passing stage and were well trained, what would it mean to bring them out to fight? Just thinking about it made him extremely excited. Chapter 3:17. In Utopia, Bai Suzhen was focused on breaking the restrictions on the Green Destiny Sword. She had entrusted the daily management of Ethereal Palace to Chu Ping'er. Chu Ping'er, who had completely resolved the knot in her heart, shouldered the heavy responsibility and stopped overthinking. Now that she had something to do, coupled with the nourishment of love and her husband, she, who was already a beauty, shone with an astonishing charm. At this moment, she was acting like a smart and capable woman as she instructed everyone to carefully handle the spiritual herbs that Yu Qianqiu had brought over. Her man was working hard outside, so she had to look after the house for him. He might have risked his life to obtain these spiritual herbs. As the beautiful Chu Ping'er was letting her imagination run wild, Yu Qianqiu's voice rang in her ears again. Ping'er, I have 2 more spiritual herbs here. You must look after them carefully and try to breed them as soon as possible. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Ping'er realized that there were 2 more strange-looking spiritual herbs in front of her. She could see them, but not see anyone. She instinctively looked around. Yu Qianqiu's teasing voice rang out again. Stop looking around. TSK. My Ping'er is getting prettier and prettier. Be good and wait. It won't be long before your hubby comes back to serve you. Hee. As his voice faded away, Chu Ping'er's cheeks flushed red. She secretly snorted. She knew very well what this bad man meant by serve me. After a while, he carefully put away the 2 spirit herbs that Yu Qianqiu had given him. After flirting with Chu Ping'er behind his back, Yu Qianqiu was in a good mood. He nodded at Miss Mu and said, You did well this time. You flatter me, mister. Miss Mu smiled knowingly. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and said, Come, let's go take a look. The 2 of them returned to the steps of the hall. The whispering crowd immediately quietened down. Yu Qianqiu returned to his high seat in the middle of the room and scrutinized the demonic ghosts below him. Seeing that many of them were still holding on to jade archives, he suddenly realized something. Turning his head, he shouted, Lady Mu, which demon king and ghost king sent those 4 top-notch spiritual herbs? All of a sudden, there was silence below, and everyone pricked up their ears. Lady Mu smiled and looked at the crowd below. Suddenly, 3 people's eyes lit up. They should be the ones who had picked the top-grade spiritual herbs. However, Yu Qianqiu waved his hand again and said, Forget it, Miss Mu, register the names of those 4 people. In the future, if anyone can find top-notch or supreme-grade spiritual herbs, write them down. I will thank them all at that time. Yes, sir. After Lady Mu finished speaking, she smiled apologetically at the 3 people below her. Suddenly, she noticed that many of them were signaling her with their eyes. She paused, then bowed slightly and whispered into Yu Qianqiu's ear, Mister, there are quite a few people who have brought you greeting gifts this time. Do you want them to bring them up now? Yu Qianqiu waved his hand, leaned on his chair, and crossed his legs. He said, I appreciate everyone's kind intentions, but there's no need to trouble everyone. Why don't you send someone to collect them for me? Just remember to list the corresponding names on the list. I will understand when I see them. The people who had prepared greeting gifts were disappointed. There were many people here, and they had all planned to make themselves familiar with Yu Qianqiu. Who knew that this would be the result? How could they know what Yu Qianqiu was thinking? First of all, Yu Qianqiu thought that these people didn't even have enough spirit stones for cultivation. He reckoned that they wouldn't be able to bring out anything good. Second, he felt that it would be too troublesome to wait for them to bring out their gifts one by one. There were so many people here. So, he dismissed them with a single sentence. Lady Mu glanced at the people below and bowed. I understand, sir. I will send someone to collect the gifts. There's one more thing. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand, asking her to wait. He stood up and cupped his hands at the crowd. I came here on the orders of my master. There's a small job on Obedient Island that needs help. My master asked me to choose a suitable candidate to go to Obedient Island. I wonder if anyone is willing to go with me. As soon as he said this, the people below were so quiet that they could hear a pin drop. After they reacted, the demonic ghost's breathing quickened, and their eyes became fiery. Who wouldn't want to stay by Changchun's side? Wasn't Heli also a demonic cultivator? Didn't he also become Changchun's disciple? The way he ran amok in demonic ghost domain was enviable. Although the ending wasn't good, he asked for it. Even if he couldn't be accepted as Changchun's disciple, he would still be someone by his side. At that time, no one in demonic ghost domain would dare to not give him face. In demonic ghost domain, Changchun was a godlike existence to everyone. To be able to stay by his side, not to mention the benefits, just the honor was unimaginable to outsiders. Now that Yu Qianqiu suddenly announced this news, all of them couldn't sit still. Since he was going to choose, it meant that everyone had a chance. This wasn't a dream, right? Lady Mu's hands grabbed the corners of her clothes uneasily. Her knuckles turned white as she let her imagination run wild. Yu Ji, who was below the stage, couldn't stop her heart. She bit her lips and stared at Yu Qianqiu. Yu Fengjiao, on the other hand, stuck out her full chest, wishing that she could attract Yu Qianqiu's gaze. These were the people who thought that they had a higher chance. Why aren't you saying anything? She bowed seductively and said, Mister, you must be tired. This little demon's massage technique is not bad. I'm willing to go with you to relieve your fatigue. I hope Mister will allow it. As soon as she said this, Lady Mu frowned. The people below looked at each other. They didn't expect Yu Fengjiao to do this. There were many female demons among the demons, but none of them were as bold as her. Yu Qianqiu glanced at Lady Mu and said with a smile, Lady Mu's company is enough. I don't dare to trouble the demon monarch. Just as he was about to turn around, he heard Yu Fengjiao call out, Mister, please wait. Am I not clear enough? Yu Qianqiu looked back and said in a cold tone. Yu Fengjiao was so scared that her heart skipped a beat. However, she still gritted her teeth and forced a smile on her face. She bowed and said, I have a special treasure to give to Mister as a greeting gift. I hope Mister will accept it. Special treasure. Yu Qianqiu's expression softened. He turned around and said, What kind of special treasure does the demon monarch have? Why don't you show it to me? Once he heard that there was a good treasure for him, he immediately became very easy to talk to. The demon ghosts were also curious. They didn't know what kind of special treasure Yu Fengjiao had. Yu Fengjiao looked at everyone and said awkwardly, Mister, it's really not convenient to show this greeting gift in front of everyone. Can you? Yu Qianqiu's eyes brightened. Could it be that he really came across a good treasure on this trip? It seemed like he had to take a closer look at the demon ghost's gift list. He didn't want to miss out on anything good. He smiled and said, If that's the case, the demon monarch can come with me. I want to see what kind of treasure it is and see the demon monarch's massage technique. He laughed and turned around. Thank you, Mister. Yu Fengjiao bowed in high spirits and quickly walked up the stairs. Together with the silent Lady Mu, her slender waist and hips swayed in a graceful manner. Chapter 318. The demonic ghosts below the stage were speechless. After a long time, someone cursed, offering a treasure. I think it's offering her body. Yu Fengjiao, this bitch, is shameless. I'm sure she's up to no good. Maybe the opportunity to go to Shantian Island will really be taken by her. Someone immediately sneered, since you know that she might go to Shantian Island, how dare you scold her? Aren't you afraid that she will make things difficult for you? The person who scolded her earlier was speechless. Thinking about it, it was true. Regardless of whether she was shameless or not, if she really went to Shantian Island, it would be very easy for her to deal with him. Yu Ji turned a deaf ear to these words. Her heart was filled with desolation. She could only blame herself for being a ghost. Otherwise, she might have a chance. Meanwhile, a man and two women entered the hot spring cave at the back of the mountain. Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up. He rubbed his hands impatiently and said, "There's no one else here. Demon Monarch, if you have any greeting gifts, why don't you take them out?" Lady Mu also stared at Yu Fengjiao curiously. She didn't know what special treasures she had brought as a greeting gift. But what she saw next made Lady Mu completely stunned. Yu Fengjiao delicately lifted her hands and gently took off her clothes. In the blink of an eye, her curvaceous snow-white body was revealed. Yu Fengjiao shyly stood there without saying a word, allowing Yu Qianqiu to admire her. Yu Qianqiu admitted that her figure was very attractive. But to him, the so-called special treasure was even more alluring. He looked carefully at the naked body in front of him, but he didn't seem to see what he wanted. He asked with a face full of doubt, "Demon Monarch, what do you mean? Where's the treasure you mentioned? Why don't I see it?" Hearing this, Lady Mu awkwardly turned her head away and held back her laughter. As a woman, she naturally understood Yu Fengjiao's intentions. But Mr. Yu still didn't understand and was still looking for the treasure. Yu Fengjiao was stunned. She twisted her soft waist and forced a smile. "This little demon will give myself to Mr. as a greeting gift. I wonder if Mr. is satisfied. What do I want you for? Where's the treasure you were talking about?" Yu Qianqiu stretched out his hand and asked for the treasure. He really wasn't faking it. He really hadn't figured it out yet because he felt that with his current status, no one in the demon region would dare to play tricks on him. Yu Fengjiao was a little dumbfounded as she stood there naked. Her lips moved, but no words came out. In the end, Lady Mu couldn't hold back her laughter. She looked at Yu Qianqiu with admiration and said, Sister Yu means that she herself is that special treasure, and she is offering herself to you as a greeting gift." As soon as Yu Qianqiu heard it, he understood that there was really someone who dared to fool him. His face immediately darkened, and he glanced at the seductive body in front of him expressionlessly. Through the demon-revealing mirror on his chest, he saw that Yu Fengjiao's original form was actually a big black snake with a ferocious face. Its appearance was quite frightening, and it was impossible to associate it with the naked body in front of him. He couldn't help but say coldly, "So you yourself are that special treasure. It seems that I really misjudged you." After saying that, he turned around and took off his clothes, soaked in the hot spring pool, and closed his eyes to enjoy the comfortable massage from Lady Mu, who entered the water next. Lady Mu skillfully massaged Yu Qianqiu's body with her 10 fingers, and occasionally looked back at Yu Fengjiao, who was standing restlessly. The two women's eyes met, and immediately sparks flew. Yu Fengjiao didn't hesitate to think that Lady Mu's gaze was provocative. On the other hand, Lady Mu's body was definitely not as good as hers, so her confidence rose again. She gritted her teeth and actually entered the hot spring. She nervously touched her 10 fingers on Yu Qianqiu's body, and stiffly moved. "If you want a massage, then do it seriously. Don't spoil my fun. Yu Qianqiu opened his eyes, then closed them again and said. Yu Fengjiao thought that he didn't dislike it, so her coquettishness came out again. She often accidentally rubbed the most successful parts of her body, and in the end, the massage simply became friction, squeezing Lady Mu's working position. Lady Mu was calm, and simply moved aside. She went ashore, put on her clothes, and watched from the side. Yu Qianqiu, on the other hand, didn't know whether to laugh or cry. To be honest, every time he came to Lady Mu's place, he didn't have any improper thoughts. He came purely for Lady Mu's massage skills. Her skills were really good. The current scene reminded him of the massage scenes in his previous life. Massages were also divided into formal and informal ones. The informal ones inevitably had a bit of erotic allure. That kind of technique wasn't very good, and it was purely a side business of selling meat. For example, the formal massage for the blind was indeed enjoyable. After all, he relied on his skills to make a living, and he often went there. Now, the difference between Yu Fengjiao and Lady Mu's massage was the difference between formal and informal. If this continued, he would definitely be burned with lust. Yu Qianqiu pushed Yu Fengjiao away, and got up to let Lady Mu help him put on his clothes. In the past, he would enjoy a comfortable nap, but today, he met a butcher, so how could he sleep? Yu Fengjiao, who was pushed away, didn't mind. She sensed that there was a slight change in Yu Qianqiu's body. She thought that her charm was still better than Lady Mu's, and that Yu Qianqiu was running away. Thus, she put on her clothes with some pride, and followed behind Yu Qianqiu, who was walking out. She asked, "Is Mr. satisfied with this little demon's technique?" Yu Qianqiu didn't express any opinion, and didn't say much. If there's a chance, this little demon is willing to come to Obedient Island and serve Mr. for a long time. Yu Fengjiao said vaguely, expressing her feelings. Do the same thing in Obedient Island. Damn it. You're not afraid of death, but I am. Yu Qianqiu said indifferently, I will consider it seriously. Thank you, Mr. Yu Fengjiao's true form was that of a snake. She followed Lady Mu's words and climbed up. As she spoke, she looked at Lady Mu, who was also a demon king, with some pride. Hearing this, Lady Mu's expression changed. She was also in the big environment of the demon ghost region, and couldn't help but desire to go to Obedient Island. However, she couldn't do it as openly as Yu Fengjiao. The outside was already in a mess. Everyone wanted to go to Obedient Island. Since Yu Qianqiu had asked everyone to recommend one person, they all recommended him. It was impossible for them to pee in the same pot. Thus, the conflict arose, and they almost started fighting. When the three of them stood on the steps again, the demon kings quieted down, but none of them liked each other. Yu Fengjiao stood on the steps and didn't come down. She looked down confidently, and looked at the demon kings with disdain. Yu Qianqiu glanced at her and didn't say anything. If you want to fight, wait until I'm gone. Yu Qianqiu coldly said. He looked around at the quiet crowd and said, I have always been a fair person. Have the people I asked you to recommend come out? If you have, come forward. The demon kings below looked at each other. After waiting for a long time, no one stepped forward. Yu Qianqiu was expressionless, but he sneered in his heart. He knew this would be the case. If not for the fact that he was a little embarrassed to accept their gifts, he wouldn't have talked about democracy with them. After a while, he said, since you haven't recommended anyone, I'll pick one randomly. You won't have any objections, right? No, we'll listen to Mr. Everyone agreed. In fact, even if they had objections, no one dared to say it. After all, not everyone was as arrogant and daring as Yu Fengjiao. In that case, I'll bring Lady Mu back to Obedient Island. What do you think? Yu Qianqiu asked. All the demon ghosts looked at Lady Mu enviously. Some of them thought that it was as they expected. Lady Mu was at a loss. She bowed in surprise and said, "Thank you, Mr." This sentence was said by Yu Fingjiao not long ago. In the blink of an eye, it had changed hands. Yu Fingjiao finally regained her senses. She lost her composure and said anxiously, "Mister, didn't you say it was me? Didn't you promise me just now?" Yu Qianqiu turned around and asked curiously, "When did I promise you?" "I only said I'll consider it." "Does that count as a promise?" "Mister, please consider it again. As long as Mister is willing to bring me to Obedient Island, I'll agree to anything." Yu Fingjiao was almost begging. It was difficult for an arrogant person to accept such an outcome, especially a woman who was more vain. Her words and actions would easily go to extremes. "You'll really agree to anything?" Yu Qianqiu asked in surprise. Yu Fingjiao's hope was reignited. She nodded repeatedly. All the demon ghosts below looked like they were watching a show. A satisfied smile appeared on Yu Qianqiu's face. He reached out his hand and gently caressed Yu Fingjiao's pretty face. The latter pretended to be shy. She wanted to refuse, but at the same time, she also wanted to welcome him. Under everyone's gaze, his hand slid down from her face to her fair neck. Then, it slid down again and gently pulled open her collar, which was already slightly open. Her two soft breasts were even more exposed. Yu Qianqiu asked with a smile, "Yu Fingjiao, how dare you lie to me? You think you're a special treasure. You even dare to use it as a greeting gift. What right do you have to make me change my words? Are you tired of living?" Yu Fingjiao, who had been acting as if she was ready to let him do whatever he wanted, suddenly felt something was wrong. His smiling words made her feel a little cold. She stammered, "Mister, I misunderstood." "Little demon, shoo." Yu Qianqiu put up a finger in front of his mouth to shush her. His other hand caressed her neck. He smiled gently and said, "Didn't you say that you'll agree to anything I ask of you? Then I'll let you die." His light laughter made all the demon ghosts below feel a chill down their spines. Fear instantly climbed onto Yu Fingjiao's face. That wandering hand grabbed her neck, but she didn't dare to resist. She begged, "Little demon won't dare, mister, please spare." Her red lips didn't finish her words, but she spat out a mouthful of cyan flame. Her entire body fiercely swelled up, then instantly shrank down. A cyan flame cut through her deformed body and spread out in all directions. In the blink of an eye, that beautiful woman turned into ashes. Along with the fluctuation of the flame, there was nothing left. Chapter 319. After burning Yu Fingjiao to death, the green flame spread and attached itself to Yu Qianqiu's body, wrapping him up completely. Yu Qianqiu stood in the middle of the breathtaking green flame, looking extremely creepy. He still had a smile on his face as he casually glanced at the audience. All the ghosts were shocked. They didn't expect Yu Fingjiao, the Demon King, to be killed just like that. She had been so flirtatious just a moment ago, but she had turned into ashes in the blink of an eye. They didn't understand what the green flame was. It was obviously not warm at all, but it was so domineering. Meanwhile, Yu Qianqiu was smiling calmly in it. This scene was unforgettable. This person was capricious and killed people with a smile. Compared to Bai Changchun, he was even more difficult to please. All the ghosts came to a conclusion in their hearts. When they looked at Yu Qianqiu again, they all kept quiet out of fear. However, they couldn't help but feel sad for the death of a rabbit. This was the effect Yu Qianqiu wanted. Killing Yu Fingjiao was to establish his authority in front of the Demon Kings and the Ghost King. He wanted to tell everyone that he wasn't someone to be trifled with. Otherwise, if everyone learned from Yu Fingjiao, it would be a mess. And he, who was very likely to be the next torture commissioner, would have no authority to speak of. How could he deter the vast demon ghost region? He had to maintain the deterrence of the torture commissioner in the demon ghost region. The swollen and burning demonic green flame was put back into his body. Yu Qianqiu said expressionlessly, "Don't panic, everyone. I'm not someone who kills innocent people. Yu Fengjiao had evil intentions and deceived me first, so I killed her. When I return, I will report to my master and appoint another demon king." In fact, he also knew that if he really fought with Yu Fengjiao, he wouldn't be able to do much with his cultivation. At the very least, he wouldn't be able to kill her so easily. How could a demon king at the end of the tribulation passing stage be so easy to deal with? The key was that Yu Fengjiao didn't dare to resist Bai Changchun's despotic power. She also didn't know that he had such a domineering green flame that could instantly destroy her demon body that she had cultivated for 1,000 years. If she knew that she would die, she might have dared to fight to the death. "Sir is wise," the demonic ghosts all bowed in unison. Now that things had come to this, no one would cause trouble for the dead Yu Fengjiao. At the same time, he gained a new understanding of Yu Qianqiu. At least in the past, Healy would not have dared to ask Bai Changchun to appoint another demon king. Healy also did not have the ability to easily kill a demon king at the end of the tribulation stage. "Originally, I wanted everyone to recommend a person to follow me to Obedient Island, but none of you made a decision. Thus, I can only make the decision on your behalf." A harmless smile appeared on Yu Qianqiu's face again. He looked around the stage and said, "Moon Yangzi is diligent in her work. I am very relieved. I am sure she will not delay my Shifu's important matter. Does anyone have any different opinions? If you do, why don't you tell me? I'll definitely consider it carefully." Yu Fengjiao, who had any objections, was killed by you. How dare we still have any objections? Isn't the lesson from the past enough? These were the thoughts in everyone's hearts, so they naturally didn't dare to say it out loud. Instead, they put on a look of sincere admiration and bowed in unison. "Mr. is wise, we have no objections." "That's good." Yu Qianqiu laughed and turned to Moon Yangzi. "Moon Yangzi, hand over the affairs of the stronghold as soon as possible. The Demon King Shifu will naturally have a new appointment. From now on, Obedient Island will be your home." "Thank you, Mr. Moon Yangzi is very grateful." Under the envious gazes of the crowd, Moon Yangzi, who was pleasantly surprised, knelt down and bowed. Yu Qianqiu nodded and calmly accepted her bow, and then he turned around and said in a clear voice, "I can be considered to have met all of you today. However, it isn't convenient for me to stay here for a long time, so please disperse and return to your respective territories. We'll naturally have the chance to meet again in the future." What he meant was for everyone to disperse, but most of them didn't even say a word to him. They were a little unwilling, but they didn't dare to object, so they bowed again and said, "Take care, Mr. We will take our leave now." A group of demons and ghosts walked out of the stronghold one after another. Yu Ji took a deep look at the stage and didn't say what she wanted to say in the end. She sighed inwardly. When Yu Qianqiu first came to the demon ghost region, his life and death were all in her hands. But now, he was below one and above tens of thousands of people. He held the power of life and death in the demon ghost region. So what if he was the overlord of a territory, the demon king and the ghost king? Yu Fengjiao was also a character in the demon ghost region. He could kill her if he wanted to. Now, who dared to disrespect him? She only hoped that he would remember the oath he made in the past. Outside the stronghold, streams of light of various colors flew across the sky. Yu Ji walked a little lonely at the back, which was particularly conspicuous. Yu Qianqiu's eyes fell on her leisurely walking figure. He paused for a moment, and a smile appeared on his face. He shouted, "Sister-in-law Yu Ji, please wait." Yu Ji's body trembled, and she slowly turned around. Yu Qianqiu walked over with a smile, cupped his fists, and said, "I'll see you off, sister-in-law." "I don't dare to trouble you to see me off," Yu Ji bowed and said. "Sister-in-law, you're too polite." Yu Qianqiu raised his hand and said, "Please." Yu Ji couldn't refuse again. She nodded with a wry smile and followed him. When the two of them came out of the stronghold, the other demon kings and the ghost king had all left. Yu Ji bowed and said, "Mister, please wait." Yu Ji bids farewell. Yu Qianqiu looked at the charming beauty in front of him, and couldn't help but think of the first time he saw her. In the camp of Meng Yan's army, she was sitting on a high platform with a pipa in her arms, showing off her elegance. What a scene it was! Now, she had to yield to him. As the past flashed in his mind, he said with a smile, "Sister-in-law, do you still remember the past?" "I, Yu Qianqiu, have never forgotten what I promised you." Yu Ji's body trembled, and her eyes immediately lit up. Surprise gradually appeared on her face. She bit her lips and nodded, saying, "Thank you for your concern, Mr. Sister-in-law, don't be surprised. Wait patiently. When I'm almost done with the things I have on hand, I will personally go to the Evil Wind Valley to visit you. It won't be too late to talk then." Yu Qianqiu said with a smile. "You will go to the Evil Wind Valley. That couldn't be any better." Yu Ji's face immediately returned to her usual charming smile. She bowed and said, "Yu Ji will be waiting for Mister's arrival at any time." She only thought that Yu Qianqiu was concerned about her matters, and was extremely happy. But she didn't know that Yu Qianqiu had always been thinking about the 9 netherworlds cave in the Evil Wind Valley. "Sister-in-law, take care." Yu Qianqiu cupped his fists and said with a smile. Yu Ji suddenly became energetic. She smiled and nodded. Just when she was about to leave, she suddenly raised her hand and patted her forehead, saying, "I almost forgot to tell Mr. something. A few days ago, a person trespassed into my territory and was caught. After interrogation, I found out that this person came from Fuxian Island, and his name was Yen Tuo. He said that he was looking for his son, Yen Shu. Originally, he wanted to execute him, but who knew that he mentioned Mr.'s name, saying that Mr. told him that his son was in the Evil Wind Valley. Yu Ji saw that he mentioned Mr.'s name, and she thought that there must be a reason, so she temporarily detained him. I wonder if Mr. knows this person. Yen Tuo. Of course he knew him. Yu Qianqiu was stunned, and his expression became a little strange. After he killed his son, Yen Shu, he was pestered by him for questioning. In order to escape, he casually told a lie, saying that Yen Shu didn't die and was imprisoned in the Evil Wind Valley of the Demon Ghost Domain as a slave. Unexpectedly, after so many years, this old man was eager to save his son, and actually dared to trespass into the Demon Ghost Domain alone. He really wasn't afraid of death. Hee. I know this person, he is an old friend. Thinking about it, Yu Qianqiu couldn't help but laugh. As time passed, she was so nervous that even breathing became a little difficult. Unknowingly, the distance between them and Yu Qianqiu had increased by one body's length. But what would come, and it was useless to be afraid. An island and the lake in the distance had already appeared in their sight. The two of them sped over and instantly arrived in the sky above Obedient Island. Miss Mu followed Yu Qianqiu and landed. Yu Qianqiu's relaxed appearance became more and more formal as soon as he landed. Then, he walked toward the houses in the center of the island. Even he was like this, causing Miss Mu, who was following behind, to become even more nervous. She didn't dare to breathe loudly and timidly followed. The island was so quiet that there seemed to be no one. Yu Qianqiu walked to Bai Changchun's door and looked back at Miss Mu, who was standing a few meters away. He bowed to Bai Changchun, who was sitting cross-legged in the house, and said, "Master, this disciple has brought the person who planted the deficient flame profound fruit. He is just outside, waiting to see you. Come in." Bai Changchun slowly opened his eyes. This ancient voice immediately caused Miss Mu's body to tremble. Although she was the demon king of Bai Changchun, she had never seen Bai Changchun before. However, she had heard this voice many times, and it matched with this voice. Yu Qianqiu waved at her and said, "Come in. Master wants to see you." Miss Mu looked at Yu Qianqiu in panic, then lowered her head to look at the ground. She carefully followed Yu Qianqiu in, not even daring to raise her head. Feeling that she was in the right place, she immediately knelt down and kowtowed, saying, "Little demon Miss Mu pays respect to immortal master." Bai Changchun casually glanced at her, then said to Yu Qianqiu, who was standing next to him, "You have to teach her about the deficient flame profound fruit. You have to go to the South Sea as soon as possible. You can all leave." After saying these two simple words, he closed his eyes again. Yu Qianqiu, who was at the side, scratched his head and said, "Master, I have something to report to you. I killed a demon king named Yu Fingjiao when I left the island, and Miss Mu is also a demon king." "Got it, I will handle it," Bai Changchun said with his eyes closed. Yu Qianqiu thought that he had not finished speaking, but he did not have a temper. He bowed and said, "This disciple will take his leave." After saying that, he waved at Miss Mu, indicating that she should leave with him. Miss Mu hurriedly kowtowed and said goodbye. She finally saw the appearance of the old man in front of her when she got up. She did not expect that such a thin and hale old man was the punishment envoy of the demon ghost domain. After coming out, Miss Mu's heart, which had almost stopped beating, began to beat wildly. Yu Qianqiu looked at the sun in the sky and waved in front of him, saying, "Miss Mu, come with me. We still have things to do, so we must not delay." The former demon king was like an obedient little girl, and just like that, she was abducted by him to farm. In the garden of the deficient flame profound fruit, Yu Qianqiu did not give her any time to rest. He used practical actions to teach her how to take care of these things, and also told her some things that she should pay attention to on the island. In fact, it was not a difficult matter. After a while, Yu Qianqiu threw a large pile of spirit stones to her. This meant that from today onwards, the heavy responsibility of managing the deficient flame profound fruit was thrown to her, and he could wander around by himself. Then, the two of them picked a place that Miss Mu felt was suitable and dug a deep pit. Miss Mu took out a miniature magnolia tree, which was her original form. After placing it in the pit, she cast a spell, and in an instant, it grew into a tall magnolia tree. It was deeply rooted in the ground, and when the breeze blew, the slender and graceful magnolia on the treetop swayed with the wind, emitting a delicate fragrance. By the time they were done, it was already late. Yu Qianqiu took off his clothes and jumped into the lake. After tossing around for a while, he went back to sleep. He was going to leave the demon ghost domain tomorrow, so he felt that he had to recuperate first. Miss Mu, on the other hand, stood under the magnolia tree all night, looking at the sparkling stars that covered the night sky. Chapter 321. The next day, Yu Qianqiu went to Bai Changchun and asked for directions to the South Sea's purple bamboo forest. After leaving, he flew south on his flying sword. Lady Mu bowed to send him off. As a ray of light flashed by, Yu Qianqiu flew at his maximum speed. He flew across the vast 1,000-mile lake and entered a dark and unfamiliar land. A cultivator flying on a flying sword suddenly entered this place, immediately alarming the demons and ghosts below. Ferocious heads appeared from the forest. Pairs of greedy eyes and the sound of saliva licking and swallowing could be heard from time to time. To the demons and ghosts here, human flesh was a legendary delicacy. They all wanted to taste it. Knowing that they couldn't catch up, the demons and ghosts unwillingly hid themselves again. There were also some who had some cultivation and some brains. When they saw that there was such an unbridled person who dared to roam the demon-ghost realm and realized that this person was coming from the direction of the 1,000-mile lake, they were slightly startled and immediately retreated. However, there were also many that were blind. Suddenly, a group of arrogant creatures jumped out from below and chased after the person. More and more people followed. "Bold human cultivator, you dare to trespass into my demon realm. Quickly stop. How bold of you, quickly stop, don't even think of escaping, no one is allowed to compete with me. I'm definitely going to eat this meat." More and more shouts came from behind him, and Yu Qianqiu turned around to take a look. There were probably over 100 demons chasing after him, all of them saying that they wanted to eat him. Great Demon King! Yu Qianqiu's eyes were cold. He coldly snorted and didn't slow down. He continued to fly forward. The commotion in the sky alarmed more and more demons. Chase, chase, chase. Hundreds of demons chasing after one person was truly a spectacular scene. Those that jumped out to chase were those with higher cultivation than Yu Qianqiu. The more they chased, the closer they got. Yu Qianqiu coldly glanced back and sneered. He formed hand seals and an azure light flashed around his body, flying at high speed with him. Suddenly, the sound of wind could be heard from both sides. More than 10 figures had already leaped past him and blocked his path in the air, all of them revealing sinister smiles. How dare you stop me, you're courting death. Yu Qianqiu bellowed, and the hundreds of green flying swords around him stopped dancing. They immediately formed into a rectangular shape and spread out in all directions, glaring at him like a tiger watching its prey. What a bold child! He dares to barge into the demon region with a pile of scrap metal. A monster that looked neither human nor ghost rushed towards Yu Qianqiu as soon as he finished speaking. The other figures did not want to be left behind. They all shouted, "Don't snatch it, it's mine," and the like as they pounced on him. The demons dodged the sword formation and pounced forward. Yu Qianqiu shouted again, "You're courting death." With a loud explosion, the hundreds of flying swords exploded. Monstrous flames burned fiercely, and the faint green light permeated the heaven and earth, quickly devouring the demons that barged into the sword formation. The demons that were trapped in the sword formation did not even have time to escape. Ah! More than 10 miserable screams sounded at the same time. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 demons were killed. Yu Qianqiu was still flying on his sword. He did not slow down at all. He wanted to take advantage of this business trip to settle some personal matters. Naturally, he was in a hurry. Just as he passed through the green flames, he formed a few hand seals. The flames behind him quickly shrank and turned back into flying swords. However, it seemed like there was one less sword. The hundreds of demons that were chasing behind were shocked by the movement in front. Half of them ran away in fright, but the other half were still chasing. It seemed like the temptation of human flesh was too great. However, no one dared to come out. They only chased after him, hoping to find an opportunity to attack. At this moment, a dull angry roar came from afar. The voice rolled over like thunder, "How dare you? Who is trespassing into my territory to kill?" Yu Qianqiu squinted and saw more than a dozen figures flying over in a formation of wild geese. Their speed was frightening. What a good king! You actually dare to call yourself king in front of me. It seems that the demon domain is becoming more and more unruly. Yu Qianqiu sneered. He did not slow down and flew straight towards the approaching people. The demons chasing behind Yu Qianqiu suddenly became spirited. Someone shouted, "The demon king is coming. Everyone, block him. Don't let him escape. Offer him to the demon king for a reward." The demon monarch leading the way was one of the demon monarchs that Yu Qianqiu had met in Lady Wood's village, and he had even offered a gift to Yu Qianqiu. The demon king had a profound cultivation. Before Yu Qianqiu could see him clearly, he had already seen Yu Qianqiu. The situation could be imagined. The demon king suddenly stopped in the air. His eyes widened and his jaw almost dropped. When he came back to his senses, he shouted anxiously, "All of you, stop!" The dozen or so people he had brought were all demon cultivators at the late stage of the crossing tribulation. However, they did not know Yu Qianqiu. When they heard this, they all stopped in confusion. They divided into 2 rows in the air and lined up on the left and right of the demon king. The demons behind Yu Qianqiu were still shouting excitedly. When the demon king heard this, his body trembled uncontrollably. He bowed to Yu Qianqiu and said, "Little demon Kuei-hu greets Mr. Yu." The 2 rows of subordinates on his left and right were shocked. It turned out that this young man was Yu Qianqiu. They quickly glanced at the bastards who were yelling about killing, and their hearts trembled. They bowed to Yu Qianqiu, who was flying over, and said, "Greetings, Mr. Yu." Yu Qianqiu just happened to break into the 2 rows and finally stopped in front of the demon king. Nearly 100 flying swords fused into his body. The group of demons that were chasing after them also noticed that something was wrong. They all stopped tens of meters away and looked at each other. Yu Qianqiu turned around and glanced at them. He slowly turned back and said coldly, "Kuei-hu, you've seen what you need to see, right? How dare you? I won't say anything more. Don't let any of these demons who are chasing me live. If any of them escape, you can go to Obedient Island and ask for my master's forgiveness. What are you hesitating for? Are you still not going to carry it out?" Kuei-hu was awakened by Zhong Yu's last shout. He immediately realized there was still a chance. He waved his arms and ordered, "Kill. Don't let any of them live." Then, he raised his head and let out a deafening roar. Responses immediately came from all directions. The long roars were coming closer and closer. He was obviously gathering people. Although the people he brought with him had high cultivation, there was a chance that some of them would slip through the net when facing hundreds of demons. At this moment, he didn't dare to be careless. If he really made a mistake and had to ask for forgiveness from the torture master, he might as well kill him. His subordinates naturally understood that this was a chance to redeem themselves. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. It was easy for the torture master to implicate others, and there was no reason for him to do so. With a teleportation, they dashed into the hundreds of demons and slaughtered them wantonly. With their cultivation at the final stage of the tribulation passing stage, they were like tigers entering a flock of sheep. "Demon King, please forgive us. Demon King, please forgive us." Ah! Cries of sorrow sounded. However, Kuei-hu's face was gloomy. He didn't feel any sympathy for them. These bastards had almost consigned him to eternal damnation. How could he not feel hatred? He wanted to tear these troublemakers apart with his own hands. Yu Qianqiu turned around and glanced coldly at the killing scene behind him. He said in a deep voice, "I have something to do under my master's orders. I can't be delayed. Kuei-hu, you will lead the way to the south. Anyone who dares to stop me will be killed." "I understand." Kuei-hu cupped his fists and bowed deeply. He then shouted, "Two of you, follow me and lead the way for Mr. Zhong." With the order, 2 figures teleported over and flew south with Kuei-hu in a triangular formation. Yu Qianqiu followed behind them on his sword. At this moment, many people flew over from all directions and quickly joined the battle. Chapter 322. At first, Kuei-hu and the other 2 demons flew quite fast. However, when they realized that the distance between them and Yu Qianqiu was getting farther and farther, they slowed down a lot anxiously. They formed a triangle around Yu Qianqiu, protecting him in the middle, and kept a vigilant eye on their surroundings. The three demons didn't want to see something stupid and offend Yu Qianqiu. That would be hard to explain. Yu Qianqiu naturally understood the three demons' intentions, but he was still a little depressed. Who asked him to be so weak? His flying speed was too slow, and they didn't do anything wrong. Although he was escorted by three demon kings, trouble gradually came as soon as he crossed Kuei Hu's territory. Not everyone knew Kuei Hu and the other two demons, especially since the four of them didn't fly very fast. In addition, the appearance of a human like Yu Qianqiu immediately attracted the covetous eyes of many demons, and pairs of greedy eyes appeared on the ground. From time to time, a few uninvited guests would jump out to ask questions, or some self-righteous fellows would try to snatch a piece of meat from Yu Qianqiu. But how could this piece of meat be eaten so easily? The three demons had long received Yu Qianqiu's order to kill without mercy. Anyone who came, whether they were looking for trouble or not, would be killed without hesitation. They would rather kill the wrong person than let the wrong person go. Usually, the three demons would have to give face to the local demon king when they trespassed into someone else's territory. But this time, they didn't worry about offending anyone. They killed whoever blocked their way without mercy. With Yu Qianqiu around, they believed that the local demon king wouldn't dare to say anything if he found out. He would probably even praise them for killing them. Think about it, under such circumstances, how many people could block the joint attack of three experts at the end of the tribulation passing stage? The three demons fought in front of them, attracting more and more demons and ghosts. However, Yu Qianqiu didn't feel that their flying speed was affected in the slightest. Once the three demons attacked, they would immediately take the opponent's life, not allowing any demons or ghosts to affect Yu Qianqiu in the slightest. This service was perfect. Kuei Hu. You've gone too far, daring to barge into this king's territory and kill the innocent. A thunderous roar came out of nowhere, shaking the dark clouds in the sky. From afar, a few silhouettes shot over with a whistling sound. With a bitter smile, Kuei Hu turned around and said, "Mr. the Golden Howler, the demon king that is in charge of this place is here. Tell him to scram and stop bothering me." Yu Qianqiu shouted in a deep voice. He had thought that with his current status, not many people would dare to stop him, and this trip should be smooth sailing. Who would have thought that all of them would proclaim themselves as kings in front of him? He was a little angry when he heard that. They didn't slow down, and Kuei Hu, who was flying in the lead, shouted, "Brother Jean, get out of the way. We will escort Mr. Yu forward. Anyone who stands in our way will be killed." His voice was also not soft, and it spread out in all directions. As soon as he finished speaking, the two sides had already arrived. The big man with golden hair was shocked when he saw Yu Qianqiu. He quickly shouted to the people around him, "Get out of the way." Then he bowed and said, "Greetings, Mr. Yu." The others were also shocked. Of course, they had heard of Yu Qianqiu, so they quickly bowed as well. Yu Qianqiu glanced at the Golden Howler, snorted, and shouted to Kuei Hu, "Don't stop. Don't mind him." When they passed by each other, Kuei Hu smiled apologetically at the Golden Howler. The four of them did not slow down at all, but the Golden Howler was scared by Yu Qianqiu's snort and words. When he realized what was going on, he shouted to the people around him, "What are you waiting for? Come with me to send Mr. Yu off." They spent a lot of mana in the air and teleported a few times to catch up with Yu Qianqiu's flying team. The Golden Howler bowed as he flew. "I didn't know it was Mr. Yu. Please forgive me. What can I do for you? I hope you can give me a chance to redeem myself." Yu Qianqiu coldly swept a glance at him, too lazy to bother with him. As a result, a Golden Howler broke out in a cold sweat. He hurriedly flew to Kuei Hu for help. Kuei, who seemed to be a friend of Golden Howler, so he said vaguely, "Sir, you are working under the order of the torture enforcer. When you passed through my territory, there were hundreds of small demons who offended you. I have ordered my men to kill them all. But I didn't expect there were so many ignorant demons in your territory. I had to kill them on your behalf. Please forgive me." Working under the order of the torture envoy. The Golden Howler's golden fur was shaking. He said, "Good job. Brother Kuei, you are helping me. I won't blame you. Is there anything I can do for you?" He was not stupid. Since Yu Qianzhou ignored him, he went to Kuei, who, the leader of the team, and asked for his life to redeem himself. Kuei, who was cooperative. He pointed to the front and said, "I don't want to kill anyone in your territory. If you really want to help, why don't you lead your men to the south? That way, you won't disturb Mr. Yu." Good idea, good idea. Brother Kuei is right. I can't let Mr. Yu be disturbed in my territory. The Golden Howler waved his hand and said, "Follow me. Clear the road to the south. No one is allowed to fly except Mr. Yu's group. Anyone who disobeys will be killed." His words were full of murderous intent. It seemed he was talking to Yu Qianzhou. The few demons followed the Golden Howler and flew forward. But before they got far, they ran into someone who wanted to slap his face. Didn't he say no one was allowed to fly? 3 demons were flying over. When they saw the Golden Howler, they bowed and bowed to him, which made the Golden Howler scream in anger. He waved his arms, and his palms instantly became like 2 gigantic bear paws, golden fur shining brightly. With a loud bang, the 2 giant palms clapped together and immediately smashed the leading demon into meat paste. The remaining 2 monsters were torn to pieces by Golden Growler's subordinates without any reason. Blood sprayed through the air. The Golden Howler roared and led the other monsters without stopping. They quickly flew to the south, and issued warnings everywhere they went. Just like that, Han Sen flew south, passing through one territory after another. He flew from day to night, and from night to day. Along the way, he encountered things similar to what happened in Golden Growler's territory. As a result, the demon kings and ghost kings passing by the territory were all startled. In the end, there was a group of demon kings and ghost kings escorting Yu Qianzhou. There were over 100 of them, and the commotion was truly huge. However, Yu Qianzhou's face was dark. He didn't say anything, which made the demon kings and ghost king nervous. After 2 days of flying, they finally arrived at the southern border of the demon region. Yu Qianzhou knew they couldn't cross the border. Otherwise, they would be killed, so he asked everyone to land. At this time, Yu Qianzhou smiled and said to the demons and ghosts, "Thank you for sending me off. The outside world is not a place you can go. Please go back." Seeing that Yu Qianzhou didn't seem to want to pursue the mistakes of the territories, they were relieved. They bowed and said, "Sir, have a safe journey. We will take our leave now." Yu Qianzhou nodded and said nothing. He rode his sword and flew to the bright world outside. Once he was out of the demon region, he traveled for 100 miles. Suddenly, he saw waves crashing on the shore and seagulls flying. In front of him was a vast sea with blue waves. He landed directly on a clean beach in the middle of the jagged rocks and looked around furtively. He took out a silver ball and stuffed it into the crevice of a rock. Then, he swayed around and looked around. He had been away from the secular world for nearly 2 months. He didn't know what had happened outside. He was a little anxious and wanted to go back for a long time. However, he guessed that since Bai Changchun could control the entire demon region, he might be discovered if he suddenly disappeared in the demon region. With the idea of safety first, he hurried on this journey without stopping. He was so far away from the demon region. He felt that there should be no problem. He suddenly flew up on his sword and plunged straight into the sea. Chapter 323. Utopia's Misty Palace. Yu Qianqiu walked out of his room with a grin on his face. The beauty Chu Ping, who came out behind him, still had a blush on her face and her eyes were filled with lust. When she heard the man in front of her laughing lewdly, she reached out and pinched his waist harshly. It was so painful that Yu Qianqiu grimaced in pain. However, the pain was accompanied by happiness. It was obvious that he did not do anything nice to Chu Ping, just now. When he passed by Suzhen's door, Yu Qianqiu paused for a moment. Then, he shook his head and walked away. Ever since he passed the green destiny sword to her, she rarely came out. She was wholeheartedly focused on breaking the seal on the sword. She was always so dedicated to the tasks that he entrusted to her. Yu Qianqiu engraved every bit of Bai Suzhen's kindness in his heart. Whenever he met with setbacks and hardships, as long as he thought of her at home, that sweet-tempered and peerless face would appear in his mind. It was like a miraculous elixir that would immediately dispel his worries and give him unlimited motivation. After exiting the Misty Palace, Chu Ping brought him to a newly opened herb garden. With the mystical effects of the purple chaos, the seal-breaking technique had already produced more than 1,000 stalks in a short period of time. Dark green leaves and crystal-like branches. This mystical plant made Yu Qianqiu's mood improve greatly. He personally picked a few pairs and asked Chu Ping to prepare some supplementary spirit herbs. Chen Feng, come to my place in the Misty Palace quickly. Chen Feng was in a daze inside a stone room. He was holding a brush for making talismans in his hand, but he didn't write anything on the talisman paper on the table. No one knew what he was thinking. Suddenly, he received a voice transmission from Yu Qianqiu. His eyes lit up and he said, "You're finally back." He threw the brush in his hand and rushed out of the stone room in a hurry. On the top floor of the ethereal palace was the largest room. It was originally designed for Yu Qianqiu to meditate and cultivate. Unfortunately, Yu Qianqiu was always busy and rarely used this place. There were no other furnishings in the room. There was only a table, a chair, and a bed. It looked empty. Chu Ping was arranging the spirit herbs she brought on the table according to their categories, looking very much like a wife. Yu Qianqiu stood at the side with his hands behind his back. After a while, Guan Yu and Chen Feng came together. The moment they entered, they greeted, "Boss." Then, they greeted Chu Ping. Yu Qianqiu smiled and nodded. His gaze paused when it fell on Chen Feng. Guan Yu still had that dignified appearance, but Chen Feng seemed a little different. He didn't think too much about it. He smiled and said to the two of them, "I brought something good back this time. Take a look." Then, he walked to the table filled with spirit herbs and stretched out his palms. A faint green flame suddenly appeared in each of his palms, illuminating the whole room with that terrifying green color. Guan Yu and Chen Feng were shocked. What kind of magic art was this? They looked at each other and didn't know what he was going to do. Yu Qianqiu didn't explain. He stretched out his arms, and the green flame on his palms instantly swelled up. The demonic green color slowly faded until it became almost transparent. One could only faintly feel some green shadows. If one didn't pay attention, who would notice that there were two balls of flame on his palms? After estimating that the temperature was about right, Yu Qianqiu said, "Pinger, throw the spirit herbs." Chu Pinger had already been instructed. She immediately threw the two spirit herbs on the table towards Yu Qianqiu's palms. The moment the spirit herbs entered the almost invisible flame, they instantly melted into a paste. Guan Yu and Chen Feng were shocked. What a powerful flame! They couldn't feel the slightest bit of temperature from standing at the side, but it was able to melt the spirit herbs in the blink of an eye. It was obvious that Yu Qianqiu could control the temperature of the flame at will. Chu Ping'er was also shocked. It was the first time she saw her man's fire art. The flame was almost invisible. The only thing that could be seen was the 2 balls of paste on his palms. Suddenly, the 2 balls of paste started to spin rapidly. The impurities were constantly thrown out and rose to the top of the transparent flame. They turned into ashes and floated away. Guan Yu couldn't understand the mystery behind it, but Qin Fang's eyes lit up. He was now an expert in this field. He naturally understood what it meant to be able to control the flame at will for alchemy. After the 2 balls of paste were removed, they turned into 2 balls of sparkling liquid. One was glowing red, and the other was glowing purple. They quietly sank into Yu Qianqiu's palms. Yu Qianqiu smiled and said, "Recently, I obtained 2 rare spirit herbs. They look the same, but one is real and one is fake. One is male and one is female. Together, they are known as real and fake spirit herbs. This purple one is the female real spirit herb, and the red one is the male fake spirit herb. Ping'er, throw again." The last sentence was directed at Chu Ping'er. Another 2 spirit herbs were thrown in. Just like the spirit herb, they first melted and had their impurities removed. Then, they turned into sparkling liquid. Yu Qianqiu said again, "Throw again." He repeated this action 9 times with Chu Ping'er. The different colored liquids in Yu Qianqiu's palms were like exquisite pagodas. They piled up into 9 layers and released a brilliant light. "Chen Feng, watch carefully. I want to concoct a real and fake limit-breaking pill. Now is the crucial step before the pill is completed. You must remember this. I don't have time, so I'll leave it to you to concoct in the future." Yu Qianqiu said to Chen Feng seriously. Chen Feng's eyes widened and he nodded repeatedly. He really couldn't understand how Boss could always get good recipes for alchemy. As soon as he finished speaking, the 9 balls of different colored liquid started moving in the transparent flame. They shone brightly like stars in the universe, enchanting and dazzling. At this moment, one of the balls of crystal suddenly collided with another ball of crystal. The 2 balls mixed together and spun rapidly. The color was a little murky at first, but after they gradually fused, a single light appeared. As soon as this larger ball of crystal liquid calmed down, another 2 balls started stirring. Although Chu Ping'er and Guan Yu had seen people concoct pills before, they had never seen anyone concoct pills without using an alchemy furnace. They could clearly see every movement in front of them. The splendor of the combination were simply dazzling. The unrestrained agitation, the instantaneous heartbreak, the tactful wrapping, the fusion at all costs, the passion and desolation were all in silence. After seeing it, one would know that the flying meteors and the dazzling fireworks were nothing more than this. The 2 of them were a little obsessed as they watched. Chen Feng smiled bitterly. Boss was indeed boss. Once he made a move, he had to admit that he was inferior to him. That kind of carefree and easy movement and that kind of beauty was something that he could never hope to achieve. Moreover, he was doing 2 things at the same time, concocting 2 cauldrons of pills at the same time. The spiritual liquid of the restriction-breaking grass floated peacefully at the top. When a 4-colored ball of spiritual liquid appeared below, the spiritual liquid at the top also started to move. Moreover, it spun faster and faster. Suddenly, 4 drops of liquid were thrown out, and they were all absorbed by the 4-colored ball of liquid below at the same time. The 4-colored ball of liquid was originally as calm as a virgin, but at this moment, its heart was stirred and its color changed. The ball of liquid at the top saw that it wasn't tempting enough, so it threw out 4 more drops of liquid, as if it was determined to change the heart of the 4-colored ball of liquid below. In the end, it exhausted itself and completely changed the color of the 4 balls of liquid. The 4 blobs of liquid whose temperament had changed greatly suddenly seemed to have gone crazy. They chased each other, drawing out streaks of shining arcs, and then collided with each other without any regard for anything else. In the end, they became indistinguishable from one another, turning into a lump. Only then did they stop fighting and slowly revolve. Although they were contained together, they were half-hearted and their colors were mixed up.